Welcome to Sports Guy Talking. I am Dustin Tran, your host, as I am here today to talk about the greatness of Erik Spoelstra. The Heat won Game 1 by the score of 123-116 as they got major contributions from multiple role players. It was clear that Erik Spoelstra outcoached Joe Mazzulla in Game 1 as the Heat are now up 1-0 in this series. Before I say anything else though, I want to present you guys with a topic question. So here it is. How impressive has Erik Spoelstra been for the Heat this season? I'm going to give you guys the short answer to this question. I'm going to give you guys the long answer to this question. The short answer to this question is yes, he has been very impressive for the Heat this season. Erik Spoelstra has done an incredible job with the roster that he has had all year long. Now, I'm going to go ahead and give you guys the long answer, which is going to be a very long answer. And honestly, of course, he has been impressive for the Miami Heat. You look at this flawed roster construction that Pat Riley built up in Miami. And even though this roster is flawed, Erik Spoelstra has gotten the most out of it. Erik Spoelstra has demonstrated a clear understanding of how to build a culture that is predicated around winning and playing basketball the right way. There's not one coach I would rather take than Erik Spoelstra right now. Erik Spoelstra, in terms of getting the most out of his roster, is the best coach in all of basketball right now. That's how good Erik Spoelstra has been. You think about how Tyler Hero's been hurt basically the entire playoffs. You think about how Victor Oladipo has been hurt for the majority of the playoffs, but it doesn't matter for the Miami Heat. It's Jimmy Butler and a bunch of role players, but it doesn't matter that they're just role players because Erik Spoelstra has done a good job being the great leader that he is and being able to put players in positions to succeed. You look at how he has managed to make Jimmy Butler become Michael Jordan Jr. That's how good Jimmy Butler has played in the playoffs. Jimmy Butler has been sensational, and he was sensational in Game 1 of the NBA playoffs in the Eastern Conference Finals against the Boston Celtics as he scored 35 points and he made 7 assists, which is really impressive for Jimmy Butler. He even made 2 3-point shots, which is not particularly a great strength of Jimmy Butler. And more importantly, Jimmy Butler stole the ball from his opponents 6 times. Jimmy Butler had 6 steals in Game 1, which is just incredible to think about. Most guys don't even get more than 1 or 2 if they get any steals at all. But to be able to get 6 steals, that's incredible defense. Not only is Jimmy Butler being awesome on the offensive end of the floor, he's being elite on the defensive end of the floor. Jimmy Butler has been the heart and soul of the Miami Heat. And even though the Miami Heat, they didn't have a good regular season, they didn't throw in the towel and say, who cares? Let's give up. Let's move on to next year. No, instead, they were like, okay, let's try to find the solutions that we do have on the rosters and let's make the most out of it. And even though we got a very old Kyle Lowry, they say, you know what? It doesn't matter whether Kyle Lowry is old or not. It doesn't matter whether Kyle Lowry is overpaid or not. What matters is Kyle Lowry can play off the bench and can play off the bench very effectively. Yeah, he might not be this elite player that he once was, but you know what? It doesn't matter anymore because Kyle Lowry, he can end up being a really good player off the bench, and he's going to serve as a mismatch for players that are playing on the opposing bench. And then they got Cody Zeller, a backup center, a former draft bust with the number 4 overall pick. It doesn't matter. They can play Cody Zeller and they can use him for defensive purposes and serve as a solid big man off the bench. You look at Caleb Martin, a guy that most people did not believe in whatsoever. Caleb Martin, he's been able to play for the Miami Heat and be able to give them solid minutes. He even scored 15 points for the Miami Heat in Game 1. And then Duncan Robinson. Duncan Robinson is a limited athlete, but it doesn't matter. Erik Spoelstra is getting the most out of him by saying, you know what? It doesn't matter that he has defensive limitations. It doesn't matter whether Duncan Robinson is overpaid. We're going to use Duncan Robinson off the bench, and we're going to use him for our outside shooting. Now, he didn't play very good in Game 1. He didn't even score a single point, but the mere presence of Duncan Robinson being a 3-point threat always serves useful for the Miami Heat. If the Miami Heat are losing by a lot of points, they can get Duncan Robinson to shoot some threes, and if he makes some threes, he can get them back in the game in a hurry. So Erik Spoelstra is already getting the most out of his role players off the bench. And then you think about what he's done with all these undrafted players on the Miami Heat, and he's made them turn into solid NBA players, which is just really incredible to think about. You think about his backcourt is conceived of Gabe Vincent and Max Strus, 2 guys that most people people probably never heard of if they didn't play for the Miami Heat. But Erik Spoelstra says it doesn't matter that Gabe Vincent and Max Strus is my backcourt, because I'm going to get them to make solid shots from the three-point line and get them to pass the ball pretty effectively and be able to run my system effectively. And Gabe Vincent and Max Strus have enjoyed really good years under Erik Spoelstra. So we got to give him credit where credit is due in that regard. And then to be able to sign Kevin Love off the street mid-season after the mid-season trade deadline, and for Kevin Love to give them solid minutes in the starting lineup, that's a testament to Coach Spoelstra's ability to get the most out of his players. So you're thinking about how Kevin Love, he has the ability to make really good passes and knock down some jump shots. That's been really impressive on Coach Spoelstra's front. And then you think about Jimmy Butler. Jimmy Butler was just a good player prior to signing with the Miami Heat, but under Erik Spoelstra, Jimmy Butler has turned into an elite player, especially in the playoffs. I don't know what it is with Jimmy Butler in the playoffs, but every time the playoffs comes around, Jimmy Butler all of a sudden decides, you know what, I'm going to try to reincarnate Michael Jordan. I'm going to try to look like Kobe Bryant out there by hitting all those tough mid-range shots and be grinding for every basket and to be able to draw fouls and be able to get to the free throw line. There's just something about playoff time and Jimmy Butler that just rhymes together, that just matches together, that just puts the rhythm together, because Jimmy Butler is playing elite basketball, and that was one of the main reasons why I picked the Miami Heat to go to the NBA Finals before the Eastern Conference Finals started. Why did I pick the Miami Heat? Because I believed in Jimmy Butler and his will to win. I believe in the role players. I believe in the elite coaching of Erik Spoelstra. There's not too many coaches better than Erik Spoelstra. In fact, I'm even going to go out as far as to say that Erik Spoelstra is the best coach when it comes to maximizing the roster that he has. He's kind of like the Mike Tomlin of the NBA in terms of the fact that Erik Spoelstra, he can get you to be competitive no matter the roster that he's given and to be able to squeeze the most out of his rosters. Yeah, he might not be the most accomplished coach in terms of wins and losses, but that's more so because of his limited personnel. That's kind of like Mike Tomlin in the NFL, because Mike Tomlin can get the most out of bad rosters. And even though Mike Tomlin only has one Super Bowl ring, you have to respect his work, because year after year after year, he puts out a competitive team that everybody can say, wow, that team won 8 games, won 9 games with that roster that he was given. And that's kind of like Erik Spoelstra, because you're thinking about this roster that is basically consisted of Jimmy Butler, Bam Adebayo, Tyler Hero, right now he's currently injured, Victor Oladipo, currently injured as well, and Kevin Love and Gabe Vincent and Max Strus and Kyle Lowry and Caleb Martin. And you're thinking, how the heck are the Miami Heat in the Eastern Conference Finals? Well, that's because Erik Spoelstra is a great coach and he knows absolutely what he is doing. Erik Spoelstra, he knows so much about the game of basketball, and he's a great coach. He's going to be a future Hall of Famer. Erik Spoelstra is one of the most underrated figures in the NBA today. That's how impressive Erik Spoelstra has been. As far as the Heat winning Game 1 in Boston, impressive to them. You think about how they were resilient in the second half. They could have easily thrown in the towel and said, you know what, tonight is just not our night, because they struggled in the first half, but in the second half, they came out firing. They even scored 46 points in the third quarter. So credit should go to Erik Spoelstra for being able to draw up some nice adjustments on the board. So I got to give Erik Spoelstra props there. As for Joe Mazzulla, man, I wish I could say that I shared the same confidence that I have for Erik Spoelstra, because Joe Mazzulla, he might be a good coach one day, but he's not a good coach right now. He's getting out-coached by Erik Spoelstra already in the series, and I only expect it to get worse. Now, as far as whether or not the Boston Celtics will win Game 2, I believe that they will end up winning Game 2 just because it's at home, and if you're Boston, you really can't afford to go down 0-2 heading into Miami, because the Heat have not lost a game at home in the postseason. I don't really expect that to change anytime soon. That's how good the Miami Heat have been at home, and if the Miami Heat can somehow steal Game 2, that's going to be a major problem for Boston. Now, do I think Boston ends up winning Game 2? I think they do, because they do got Jason Tatum, they got Jaylen Brown, and no matter what you can cook up, if you're Erik Spoelstra, you just have to admit that the Celtics roster is just flat out better than the Miami Heat on paper when you compare player to player, matchup to matchup, personnel to personnel. But either way though, the Boston Celtics, they'll get it together in Game 2 and they will win Game 2. But as far as whether or not they will win the series, no, I don't see it happening. I got the Miami Heat winning the series in 6 games. I said that before the series started. I am going to stick by that prediction. I expected Miami to win Game 1. They did exactly that, and I got them winning the series in 6 games, and they're going to go back to the NBA Finals. And Erik Spoelstra, man, he's done an incredible job. And if there was a thing such as a Coach of the Year award in the postseason that then Erik Spoelstra should absolutely get that award because he has done an excellent job getting the most out of this roster. So that is why I have been very impressed with Erik Spoelstra's work, as he has undoubtedly gotten the most out of this roster. Remember, go ahead and subscribe to Sports Guy Talking, like the video, and please comment down below. If you guys do that, I may shout you guys out in my Instagram story every Monday. That'll be for the @DustinTran Instagram account. Make sure to follow me on Instagram @DustinTran and @SportsGuyTalking. Also, go follow me on Twitter @DustinTran. Again, go ahead and do those things that I just told you guys to go do. Hopefully, you guys enjoyed the content that was just produced. Peace out. I hope you enjoyed that video. Want more Sports Guy Talking, the home of great sports content? Make sure you click that subscribe button to get the latest from Sports Guy Talking. Go ahead and like the video, comment down below, check the description box on the video in order to follow my Instagram and Twitter. Also, be sure to check out more of the best clips from the YouTube channel, Sports Guy Talking.